Not good.
No.
How did Mark Hill gloat about this one?
Well, he said, other than club getting injured, everything went for Wigan in the opening stages. We defended the sin bin well. What, they stood and stopped people getting out of it, did they? Then we went up the gears in the second half and were just too good for a Hull KR side who forgot how to tackle. Farrell was class. Have I mentioned how much I love him before?
Yes, you have, and I have to say, I mean, obviously, watching the highlights of this, which is all I've seen, I was thinking you'd be purring with the way that Farrell was playing. Yeah, Carsten says the Robins could need a German tackling machine, but the super coach dropped him again. Hashtag Jimmy Watch.
At David Laura said, Wigan shook off their grand final hangover and finally got into gear. A joy to watch. I'm now cautiously optimistic about next Friday.
Mm. Jen K says a new HD screen for 2019 at the DW, but a performance straight out of the 80s from Wigan. We seem to have found some real speed and lots of very quick hands. Farrell was outstanding, I thought. Knew it was all over at half time, although the second half, when Hull KR declared by taking Maguire off. On to Saints now for a fixture we've won for the last 2 years, both times very much against expectations. Wow, these Wigan fans are getting cocky, aren't they?
They are a
Oh,
couple of wins
goodness
and they think
me.
they've won everything. They're not even in the Challenge Cup semi-finals. Tom Andrews said, well, damn. My previously written funny review will have to wait a few weeks. It's a funny old season when we beat second, third, then lose to 12th and get hammered by the RFL darlings. Hopefully turn it around next week.
Well, maybe. Who can tell with this league? Obviously, I've just seen highlights, so other than watching how good Farrell was, back to his best. Obviously, back off the injured bench as well. Obviously, doing his thing. Yeah, the only thing I've really got to say about this one is that this looked like a completely different team to the one that we all saw earlier on in the season. Um, yes, I know they weren't necessarily playing the best team in the league, but yeah, they looked closer to their best, I would say. Yeah, lots of good movement with the ball. We've talked about Farrell, and I thought Williams was very good as usual. Whenever you see Wigan perform well, yeah, just a very, very dominant performance, and you've got to say it's looking ominous for anyone else looking to finish in the top five because they're outside of probably the top two. You could argue that Wigan are the third best team in the league at the moment, and you wouldn't have said that 2 months ago.
Well, at the moment, I'd argue that they weren't the third best team, but, we'll
On
see after
form,
the week,
on form.
but
We'll
not on
see.
paper.
I would argue that they're coming into the playoffs with a little bit of momentum, which is not every team is doing that.
No.
I think
It's
who
only a few weeks ago, isn't it, that they were in the relegation fight?
exactly it was Wigan in crisis, and
Yeah.
no one's saying that anymore. So yeah, it's interesting to see. Other than they've got a few bodies back, they might be picking close to a full strength team, but I think it's a little bit more than that. I think there's definitely an attitude change that we've seen in terms of the level of performance. Um, yeah, they just seem to be performing all over the park. So just you watch. We'll get Lamb signing a new deal for next year, and it'll go to shit again. But
That would
yeah,
be a good
but
story.
but for now, we're gonna probably look ominous in terms of threatening in the playoffs.
They are, yeah.
They are. One team, unless you've got anything else to say on this one?
No.
Nope. Move on quickly. One team that's not looking ominous, or well, ominous in a different way. On Saturday, down in the capital, it finished London 6, Warrington 36. 36 nil at half time and completely over at that point, you would say. Greg Dolan was the man in charge with 2,357 people there, not including anyone who chose to go to the Scholars instead. Each team had the same number of clean breaks, unbelievably. the same penalties conceded and a very similar team tackle success rate. So I think that proves that stats can tell you anything.
Yeah.
Warrington made 479 more metres though at 1.4 metre better average gain. So yeah, that's the killer stat there. For Warrington, Jake Memo, one try assist, 219 metres. It's pretty good from old stepdad. Bryson Goodwin, one try, 121 metres. Darrell Clark, one try assist, 121 metres. And Tom Lynham with a try and 116 metres. For the losers, the wingers showed up in one way. Reece Williams with 5 tackle busts, 116 metres and 2 clean breaks. Kieran Dixon, I'm going to say that's 5 tackle busts. He definitely didn't score 5 tries. 109 metres and 2 clean breaks. So yeah, just one. Well, is it a view? Kind of.
It's a view, not a review, I would argue.
Yes, it's a perspective. Yes, I would agree. What did Tim say?
Oh, sorry, yeah. Tim said, I would have been at this one if they hadn't put it on at exactly the same time as the Scholars. Sort it out, London's.
Well, not to spoil it, but I think Tim will have been happy to be where he was. But yes, the definition of over at half time, this one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
36-0. And
London won the second half.
That's losers talk. I always hate that. It's a real bugbear of mine when coaches or players or whoever says, or fans even says, oh well, it was only 12-10 in the second half, or we actually won the second half, and games
Well,
are
I
played
appreciate that, it's 36-0 is a great half, but to not score a point in a half, in the second half, I think it's quite poor.
Well, I mean, I've only seen the try, so I can't really comment on what their attitude was. They were, I would say, the queue was very firmly on the rack, and they were probably just going through the motions.
But second against bottom, I think I don't think I'd be overly pleased if I travelled down to London and see them not even bothering to score a try in the second half.
No, true. I mean, as I say, I can't really comment on the flow of the game. Maybe the flow was completely different, because at the end of the day, if you've made the same number of breaks, the same number, penalty count is even, and the team tackle rate is the same, then that to me tells you that it was probably, maybe it was more even than 36-6. I don't know. The one thing I did comment on this from the highlights is that we saw both of the London wingers dropping balls, which led to Warrington tries, which is something you just cannot do when you're up against it. And I think what we're seeing, and we've talked about this before, is London can compete in this division, but they just can't do it consistently enough. And whilst obviously we've accused you a lot of choosing their games this year, I think I think through necessity, I think that's what London are doing. And it didn't seem like Saturday was one of those games where they were particularly up for it, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, and actually 36-6, it's not a disgraceful score.
It's not, and it's not damaging their points difference, which could ultimately be crucial.
They've come out of the weekend positive to what Rovers have come out of the weekend with points difference.
That's true, and I think it's, if I remember rightly, is there like a point between them or something?
I think it was last time. Yeah. No, it's now there's 30 points between them.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. Yeah, it was before London had played. That was right. But yeah, there's not much in it. So a couple of kind of results this way or that way might change it around. But yeah. But yes. Kind of job done for Warrington, and scurry back up the M6, I would say.
Indeed.
So, anything else to say about London's game?
No.
No, but don't put it on at the same time as the Scholars are playing. And the last game of the weekend, Sarah.
Yes, the last game. So Catalans winning 44 points to 10 against Wakefield in the south of France. Half time it was 20 points to 6. in front of 7,237 people, refereed by Liam Moore. Unfortunately, we have incomplete team stats, but in terms of individuals, Jodie Broughton with 3 tries, 125 metres and 3 clean breaks. David Mead with 1 try assist and 120 metres. Mikael Simon with 111 metres. Matt Whitley with 1 try and 109 metres. For the losing Wakefield, it was just Joe Arundel with 101 metres.
Yeah, so a few views on this one. So Mark Hill says again, called it. Yep, so did I. Comprehensive for Catalan. Started with a better game plan and more direct forward play. Throwing some odd flash of brilliance from Gigo. Really pleased for Broughton, the fastest quantity surveyor in the West, after such a long time out of Super League action. Yeah, he's certainly come back with a bang, hasn't he?
He has, yeah.
Is that 5 tries? Did he score 2 last week?
I think he might have done.
Yeah, he's certainly come back with a bang. So yeah, it's never easy being out for a year, is it? So yeah.
No.
Good on Jodie Broughton, big original member of the Super League pod family. So yeah, good on Jodie. What did Carsten say?
He said, Wakey never looked like they were in this game. Catalans wanted to make a statement, and they did. This was too one-sided to be interesting. Maybe home Catalans are back, or Wakey are just shit and will struggle in the relegation battle.
We'll see. Mal Carmatios says, Scorchio super hot karma, Wakey burned. Stupid coach Steves lives to fight another day as long as he don't melt. Best ever idea was drink breaks, and then a billion emojis of varying types of alcoholic beverage. Repeat to fade. Aye, aye,
aye. Paul O'Brien got in touch and said, Catalans back to winning ways in convincing fashion. Far too strong for Wakefield.
Yep, and finally on this one, Alan Walker says, biggest sorry, only big win of the season says it all. Wakey are in a bit of trouble now. Is this the mark for the rest of the season or just another blip? At least we turned up the heat. Gigo was majestic, no surprise. Broughton returned with style. Smith had his best game of the season too. I knew he'd come good. Up in the stands.
That is harsh.
He's an old man. He'd probably struggle in that heat because it was certainly a hot one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I see that McNamara said it was tactical not to select Smith, and that he's going to, continue to experiment with his halfback. So we'll see what next week brings. Personally, I'd argue maybe if you've got such a good result, maybe don't experiment too much.
Yeah, but there's well, I'd say they're inconsistent, but you could tar half the teams in Super League with that brush. So
if you get rid of St Helens, I think you could probably say that the others were. It's an inconsistent league, isn't it?
Exactly, and this is what makes that's why such an average Joe such as myself is tipping pretty well this year. But yeah, interesting one. Have you seen much of this one?
I haven't. We were at the Hull FC Family Day on Saturday, so I didn't see much of this at all.
Okay, so I have watched this back. It was definitely hot because Ben Jones-Bishop wasn't wearing his scrum cap after the first 2 minutes.
Right.
That's very odd. I can totally understand why he took it off, but yeah, it didn't.
But his mum won't be happy.
Well, it's weird. You completely unrecognisable without that on his head. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I thought that the conditions, 35 degrees or whatever it was, didn't suit Wakefield's pack. They were definitely getting a bit hot and bothered under the collar, and not really. They're not used to those conditions. And whilst one team managed to put up with it and come away with a result in the south of France this weekend, Wakey didn't. I have to say that the handling wasn't brilliant either side really, but ultimately it was Catalan that pulled it together with getting the move together for Broughton's first try. Whitley's try was a good line run where the ball was probably threatening to go out the back and the gap was actually up the middle, so Whitley could take that space. Just not. Wakefield just didn't seem to be in it for me. Um,